Good morning, Cyprus. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of a deeper look into our text today. You were fantastic with your predictions last week and the unpicking of the front cover, and lots of you noticed the word pioneers and gave really clear descriptions about those people and how you think that these may be a collection of aspirational people who have changed the world for the better within science, and potentially you mentioned them having barriers that they would have had to overcome. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail today. Now, what I am going to do, before I read you the text, I'm just going to flick through the pages. So I'd like you to pause it on each page and read the text for yourself, please. Okay, so we're looking at the introduction today, and we will... Okay, so this is how the page is set out. They're all set out with this, these illustrations around outside. Okay, so pause it and have a read of that one. Then that one. That one. And finally that part. Okay, now you've had a chance to read it on your own. Let's have a look together. So, introduction. Nothing says trouble like a woman in trousers. That was the attitude in the 1930s anyway. When Barbara McClintock wore chinos at the University of Missouri, it was considered scandalous. Even worse, she was feisty, direct, incredibly smart, and twice as sharp as most of her male colleagues. If you think these seem like good qualities for a scientist, you're right. But back then, these weren't necessarily considered good qualities in a woman. Barbara made her mark on the field of genetics with her pioneering work mapping chromosomes. Yet while working at the University of Missouri, Barbara was seen as bold and unladylike. The faculty excluded her from meetings and gave her little support. When she found out that they would fire her if she got married and there was no possibility of promotion, she packed her bags. With no plan except an unwillingness to compromise her worth, Barbara went to find her dream job. This decision would allow her to eventually make the discovery of jumping genes, winning her a Nobel Prize and forever changing how we view genetics. Barbara McClintock's story is not unique. As long as humanity has asked questions about our world, men and women have looked to the stars, under rocks and through microscopes to find the answers. Both men and women have the same thirst for knowledge, but women have not always been given the same opportunity to explore the answers. In the past, restrictions on women's access to education were not uncommon. Women were often not allowed to publish scientific papers. They were expected to grow up to become good wives and mothers while their husbands provided for them. Many people thought women were just not as smart as men. The women in this book had to fight these stereotypes to have the careers they wanted. They broke rules, published under pseudonyms, and worked for the love of learning alone. When others doubted their abilities, they had to believe in themselves. When women finally began gaining wider access to higher education, there was usually a catch. Often, they would be given no space to work, no funding, and no recognition. Not allowed to enter the university building, Lise Meitner did her radiochemistry experiments in a dank basement. Without funding for a lab, Marie Curie handled dangerous radioactive elements in a tiny dusty shed. After making one of the most important discoveries in astronomy, Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin worked for decades as a technical assistant. Creativity, persistence, and a love of discovery were the greatest tools these women had. Marie Curie is now a household name, but throughout history there have been many other great and important women in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Many did not receive the recognition they deserved at the time and were forgotten. When thinking of physics, we should name not only Albert Einstein, but also Emmy Noether. We should all know that it was Rosalind Franklin who discovered the double helix structure of DNA, not James Watson and Francis Crick. While admiring the advances in computer technology, let us remember not only Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, but also Grace Hopper. Throughout history, many women have risked everything in the name of science. This book tells some of the stories of some of these scientists who, in the face of no, said, "Try and stop me." Okay, so there is our introduction, giving us a bit of a background, a bit of a reason as to why the book was written, about finding recognition for these people, in this case women, who've overcome significant barriers, significant challenges to progress in their careers, follow their passions, and to be the best version of themselves. So what I want you to do today is to think about that. Now, before we get started, okay, I'd like you to think about question 1, which is about the vocabulary that was used in there. Now, before you jump straight to a dictionary, I'd like you to have a look, find these words in the text. You have to jump back in the video, okay? Compromise, stereotypes, and pseudonyms. And I want you to think about your definition. If you don't know what these words mean, okay, what do you predict they mean? Use the information in the text around them. Okay, so go back into the text and find those words. There's pseudonyms, okay, jump back in the video. So let's read the sentence around it. They broke rules, published under pseudonyms, and worked for the love of learning alone. So what do you think when you've heard that sentence? What do you think pseudonyms means? Okay, so have a go at creating your own definitions, and then I'd like you to use a dictionary to find the definition of those words, see if you are correct. Okay, the second thing I want you to have a look at is the first scientist that we looked at, Barbara McClintock. And she was at the University of Missouri, which is in America. And I want you to explain in your own words how you think she was treated unfairly. Okay, so you have to reread the first couple of paragraphs, okay, the first 2 slides of the text. How did you think she was treated unfairly? And then I want you to look at finding some evidence for me. So here's a statement that I've made that all of the women named in this introduction overcame significant challenges. Now, that's the statement that's been made, but at the moment, there's no evidence to support that. So what I'd like you to do is look into the text and find 3 examples for me. So I'd like you to find an example of a scientist, and then a challenge that was put in their way and how they overcame it. Okay, so find a scientist in here, okay, and what challenges did they face? Okay, so Barbara McClintock, the challenges she faced were that she was excluded from meetings and they gave her little support, and that there was no possibility of promotion. So she was never going to be able to progress, to be able to get into higher positions within the university. So she left, didn't she? She left and she went to find a job somewhere else. So she had a challenge, she overcame it, and she went on to win the Nobel Prize, okay? Made significant discoveries in science. So there are your 3 questions today. Go back to the text, unpick it, have a look, and I look forward to seeing your work on Class Dojo.